Welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting of Tuesday, January the 28th. The first order of business is the singing of O Canada, and I understand Alessandra Dino is going to be singing tonight. Looks like you brought your own guitar player too. Oh, and Mr. Sturpey. All right.
How are you?
Very good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So we've got a local talented guitar player, a graduate of Notre Dame and then St. Paul. Ian Meyer, sorry, who's played, and actually, were you on the stage New Year's Eve?
I was, yeah.
He was on stage New Year's Eve along with Valerie Borghese.
Correct.
So, a talented guitar player, but we're here to talk today about our national anthem singer, Alessandra Dino. So, Alessandra is 10 years old. She attends Loretto Catholic School. She's very interested in music and takes lessons at Niagara Institute of Music to learn drums and vocals. Alessandra loves animals and has several pets, including 3 dogs and a snake named Elizabeth. She played competitive soccer for Hamilton and now plays for Niagara Falls. Perhaps most importantly, Alessandra loves spending time with her friends and making slime. Please welcome Alessandra as our national anthem singer this evening. Alessandra, I think this, as far as I recall, this is the first time I've ever seen our singer accompanied by a guitar player. So we'd like to thank Mr. Sturpey for joining you, and that was an absolutely awesome, funny, folksy way of doing O Canada. It was terrific. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Okay. I believe it. She's not here. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm. We can put there's an intermittent setting on too. I don't know if you know. Yeah. I'm gonna take a picture. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor.
I'm sorry, sir. We've got an agenda, and we're going to follow our agenda. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes from our City Council meeting of January the 14th. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Strange. You have a declaration, Councillor Dabrowski, or no? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you very much. Do we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Very brief tonight. First off, you have one pager tonight. We'd like to acknowledge the passing of Nick Ross. The next council meeting will take place on Tuesday, February the 11th. And of course, hey. Yeah, oh, thank you for that. That was left off. Yes, 2 days ago, thank you for that. We had the annual, the 31st annual builders. It was a great event. We were joined by our Director of Rec and Culture and our CAO, and it was a great event. Again, it was great to see a lot of all those great goals, and then they come back here and get recognized where it all started. And you can really see the emotion coming out of these parking budget. And I understand Tiffany Clark, our Director of Finance, is going to provide an overview on the parking budget. So, Ms. Clark, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So we're going to go over the proposed revenues and expenditures. We're going to review fines that would come into effect July 1st, which would be confirmed by just 9% up from last year. And then for the expenditures, salaries are going up minimally. This is just cost of living. No new positions in there. Benefits down a little bit. There's nothing really to highlight in any of the other things. The rents and financials is the one. We are in negotiations on one of our leases, so we have built in. That's essentially the amount of surplus we're anticipating in the parking budget that we would be able to. Reserve is used to fund any parking capital projects, or should we have a year where we're in a deficit, we would then be able to pull from that parking reserve fund to cover the deficit. So this is just a breakout by parking lot. So the parking maintenance, this is where a lot of the staff bodies are coded to. And then we've got the individual parking lots. As you can see, most of them result in a surplus. Just a couple are in a deficit position. Sometimes this is due to maintenance required on them for the year. And then we have the rest of our parking lots here on page 2. And then parking control services at the bottom. There is a staff member there, and as well as all the fines are coded to this responsibility center at the bottom here. So you can see with the increase in fines, it actually pushes that particular responsibility center into a surplus position, which is a good news story. You can see at the bottom, this is a balanced budget at the moment. That's due to the $68,000 entry to reserves. That's how much surplus we're anticipating. And then just a couple of slides about our new parking initiative. So again, these adjustments are going to be proposed as of July 1. They'll be confirmed in the schedule of fees. They'll come back to council in June to vote on. We're looking at aligning the parking rates and hours of operation to better address area demands and needs. So some of this is an extension of parking rates and time at the hospital, so from 2 hours to 3 hours, and then matching our Main Street rates to match our Queen Street rates at $2 an hour. We're looking to increase the fines to match municipal fine trends and enforcement deterrent trends. We haven't increased them for a number of years. I believe, did you say 20? 20 years. And then Honk Mobile. So we just started this initiative in 2018. Continues to be well received with 48% increase in usage from the public. So this is a good news story. And then Paymentus. This is new to us. So you used to be able to pay your parking tickets through PayPal online. We've now switched to Paymentus, which is a third-party processor. So the user can pay their fine online. They pay $1.75 convenience charge per ticket. And then the municipality doesn't have to pay for those service charges. We just collect the revenue from the fines. And that's it. Well, so we're recommending that council approve the 2020 proposed parking budget. If you have any questions, we can.
Okay, thank you for that, Tiffany. So motion by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that we approve the 2020 parking budget. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you for that. Okay, next up, Mr. Nickel is on deck here. We've got the MW 2020-01 Enhanced Collection Services reports coming to council. And we'll give the floor to our Director of Municipal Works, Mr. Nickel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to walk through step by step the enhanced options that the city has requested from the region to include in their upcoming waste collection contract. The overview of this presentation will go into a bit of the background about why we're here asking for these options. And I've broken down the options requested into three distinct categories: our public space options, our designated business area, which will be referred to as DBA options, and options related to mixed use, multi-residential, and other non-residential types of options. And we'll summarize this presentation with recommendations and financial implications. So why are we here? The region has led a new contract that will be proposed to start on October 19th of this year. Therefore, they are looking for this council to provide them with some decisions on options for enhanced services beyond the initial base contract. And those options have been requested to be confirmed by this council by the end of January 2020. So back in 2018, so prior to 2019, the region undertook a comprehensive stakeholder and public consultation process. The results of that were presented to this council on January 15th. And on February 12th, you received a staff report from Municipal Works, which provided the direction to the Regional Council with options that you'd like to consider. I do want to preface all of this presentation with the facts that this is pricing presented for collection only. Disposal of the garbage collected is in addition to these costs. So every ton that's collected from public space or from container pickup is weighed and disposed and charged back to the city on a prorated type of basis. So the more you collect, the more you'll pay for extra options. So to start, we'll break down into some of the public space options. Public space being some of our designated business areas and some of the more accessible public spaces for pedestrians to access. So there's two main options that we've asked the region to consider. And this is relating to collection of garbage and recyclables on street litter bins. We have about 256 litter bins located within those public spaces and 46 recycling bins. Presently, we're advised that they are collected on a daily basis during the peak season and continue to be collected on a daily basis during the off-peak season in the Lundy's Lane, Clifton Hill, and Victoria Avenue districts. When we found that from the region, we were a little bit surprised because we were noticing a performance issue. They don't appear to be collected during off-peak every day, and I'll speak about that in the next slide. So currently, this is the pricing structure that we've been billed on for daily collection year-round, with a price of $153,000 and change for garbage collection and $3,000 and change for recycling. The submitted price is in fact a reduction in cost from the new contractor of $102,000 for garbage collection, $23,000 for recycling. This is for daily pickup year-round. So an alternate to that option for the same routes, the same number of bins, was also priced to collect every day during peak seasons, but to go to a once-a-week collection in the main line, Lundy's Lane, Clifton Hill, and Victoria DVAs, on a weekly collection during off-peak. So there's a cost savings to move to that option of about $58,000 on an annual basis. So we feel this option actually reflects the current state of practice, although the region is claiming and we're paying for daily collection in the area. And we know this because we send out city crews on a daily basis to monitor the waste situation, and we're finding overflows during the winter periods, whereas we're not finding overflows during the summer periods. So we have a bit of a performance issue. Nevertheless, we're looking forward, and this is the recommendation we will be suggesting to move forward with. So moving forward into options pertaining solely to the designated business areas. The third option that was considered was for the continuation of the base service, which presently 7 containers are allowed to be collected within designated business areas from standard properties. That base service is proposed to be reduced in the regional base contract to 4. So the cost to maintaining 7 containers per week, once per week, would cost an additional $16,369 as presented. The survey work that was done by the region back in 2018 indicated that the container limits within the DVAs were not often exceeded, so they weren't receiving more than 7. However, some of the BIAs, when queried at that time, were not supportive of this reduction. Some of them were, so you can see for yourself that is the price to continue with the current level of service. The fourth option within the designated business area, or second option in the DVAs, but fourth option overall, is to further increase the number of containers eligible for pickup only within food and lodging properties inside those designated business areas. So presently 15 containers are allowed during peak season between Victoria Day and Thanksgiving, and that has been reduced in the base contract as well. So to continue with that level of service of 8 additional bags, to go from 7 to 15, would cost $16,369, which is an increase of approximately $8,000 from the current pricing for that option, which we're receiving today. Now we'll move into the mixed use, multi-residential, and institutional commercial industrial options. So those are not specifically relative to designated business areas. So the fifth option, the first of this subset, is for the container pickup or dumpster pickup at multi-residential and mixed-use properties with more than 6 residential units. What we know today is that we have 211 containers priced in the regional contract. Those containers are placed at 110 multi-residential apartment units and 36 multi-res condominium properties. We are aware that Niagara Falls is one of the only municipalities, the only large municipality for sure, that includes container pickup for apartment type of properties where there's profit being driven. So that is a current service that we are receiving. 2019 pricing, current pricing of $114,000. The pricing has gone up by about $84,000 in the future contract, up to approximately $198,000. The sixth option presented is for additional garbage containers per property at mixed-use, multi-res, and commercial types of properties. So the base service from the region, which is currently 6, is being scaled down to 4 containers, 1 per week. And so the region has provided some optional pricing to maintain that current base level of service. The surveys that were done in 2018 of actual pickup locations indicated average containers per property was about 2.1. So quite a bit below the allowable at the time and still below the recommended base service. So the price to move forward with this as an option would be approximately $10,912. Excuse me. The last option presented, second last option presented by the region is the collection of large bulky goods at those mixed-use multi-residential properties, those apartments and those condo properties. Presently, that is not a service that is provided. So if you're in a multi-residential type of unit, you are not eligible for curbside pickup of bulky goods like furniture, carpet, etc. The cost to move forward with this service would only be eligible if the city were to confirm continuation of curbside pickup and container pickup at those types of units, which would be an additional $128,500. And again, it's a brand new service because it is not eligible today. The last option priced by the region was in-ground collection service. So the picture on the slide is what a typical in-ground collection would look like. There are a few proprietary types of in-ground collections. If you're the owner of one of these types of in-ground units, you typically provide or you request a contracted service to remove the waste, the recyclables, and the region was requested to do some pricing so that we could have an identification of whether or not that's something that we want to receive and be billed for. So because we didn't have a number of properties within the city, or the region didn't, I should say, They received unit pricing, which was $76 per stop for crane, which is what you see here, or $55 for front-end loader removal of these type of in-ground collections. So moving forward, the staff report you have today indicates our recommendations. However, I thought it would be appropriate to identify what it would cost to maintain the current service levels. So all of the service levels in the 2019 and the base service, options 1 through 6 are what you're receiving today and are costing the city $279,000 and change, plus the disposal cost. To continue with that level of service would cost the city $368,000 and change, which is an increase of $89,000 plus the disposal costs. So to reiterate the options, we reviewed the pricing for full year versus partial year off-peak pickup in the public spaces. And as you can see, the overall difference is about $58,000 of a price increase, decrease, depending on how you look at it, between full year and partial year service. And the new options, to summarize, are the collection of bulky goods at those mixed-use multi-residential properties, about $128,000, and the per-stop costs. So what we've presented in the staff report are, we're recommending to proceed with 4 options. The 2 public space options for partial year collection on a daily basis, and the remainder would be weekly pickup in the mainline district designated business areas. That has a net savings, significant net savings of approximately $80,000. We're also recommending to continue with 7 containers inside of the designated business areas and the 15 container limits for those food and lodging areas inside the DBAs. In consideration that there are likely a few properties that will use those, and allowing the limits to climb up to 15 will certainly assist those properties in conducting their business on an ongoing basis. So the recommendations of staff have a net difference, net reduction in cost of $64,000. We are recommending to discontinue the collection of dumpsters, containers at mixed-use and multi-res properties. This has been, to the best of my knowledge, an item that has been discussed by council in the past, being the only municipality within the region engaged in that type of collection. We feel there's an opportunity for some cost savings. Nevertheless, if that were to be done, there would be the requirement for individual container pickup contracts by each and every one of those property owners. So we'll leave that for council's consideration. And we're also not recommending to continue with the option or the enhanced option to go from 4 to 6 containers for standard mixed-use properties outside of the designated business areas. So that would be sort of standalone mixed-use properties would have a maximum of 4 containers, which would be a standard base service across the region. So to wrap things up, the new contract is starting later in October, and the region has requested the decisions by the end of this month. Staff are recommending council consider 4 options that would modestly maintain current service levels and reflect the community needs we see today. We are recommending to discontinue the collection of dumpsters and containers at multi-res and mixed-use properties, which would result in staff recommendations of a total annual cost of $100,522, which is a reduction from the current service levels of $279,000. So, Mr. Mayor, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nichol. Good job on that presentation. A lot of information to digest. Okay, Council, we're looking for some direction on this from Council. Councillor Pietrangelo.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a question, excuse me, through you, maybe to staff. Has the city ever opted out of mixed residential or mixed use and multi-residential garbage collection in the past? I mean, I don't remember us doing that. I'm just wondering why it's an avenue that we take now. Is it because it's an extra charge? It's an enhanced service? I mean, it's been an enhanced service, I think, ever since the region took over it. For us to stop it right now without any notification, to me, would just seem not part of what we generally suggest. So maybe a question through you to staff and just to see where we are. I mean, overall, those properties end up going in the total assessment, and the bill gets divided according to assessment anyway. So I'm not sure if the thought process is that we're adding to everyone else by adding those properties. They should be paying their fair share if it's market value assessment. Those are my points.
So Mr. Nichols, so you got the question on that, it would be option 5, I guess. Mixed residential, mixed use properties, the history, have we always, and I know you haven't been here forever, but have we always collected this as part of our service?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, it is my understanding that it is a service that we have always been providing. If I'm incorrect, I'd be happy to have someone clarify that. So my understanding, it is indeed a service that's been continuing in the city for a considerable amount of time. What we've reviewed is been recommended more on a user pay system, an equity system. So notwithstanding the billing that is done to those commercial properties, there is also a recovery mechanism for them to recover the additional costs for those container pickups. And that's how most municipalities recover those costs for waste collection, where there's a profitable market plan for multi-res or mixed-use, or sorry, condo types of properties. And at the end of the day, it's the will of council on how we want to proceed.
Okay. If that answers your question, Councillor? I know what you're thinking, because we're the only one in the region doing it.
Yeah, but we've always done it.
But we've always done it.
Always. And we haven't given notification that there's going to be a change. So, yeah, that's my concern, is do we just simply accept this? I'm unclear as to the commercial and the multi-res. Does the commercial fall under the mixed use? Is that where the commercial would be?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this option only speaks to multi-res and mixed use. Commercial properties are not picked up by the city today.
That's what I thought, but
Right.
I thought I heard the word commercial in there, so. I guess my general feeling is that I would still rather have it in. I mean, in terms of, I guess, dividing up the bill, do we not take all the market value assessment of all the properties and then divide the bill that we get from the region? And then that's the proportion that each pays. So the more properties that get added to the overall assessment, the more assessment there is in order to divide by the total cost. I mean, that's my question.
Well, is that one for Tiffany, or is that one for?
Through the chair, I think I understand your point, because it goes back to the earlier discussion where one of the residents brought up, we don't get it, but we have to pay. So it's sort of a way for them to back into it, even though they're paying it. Is that kind of what is being implied here?
Yeah, I think he's suggesting either you could bill them direct, or they're part of the overall assessment, and they're kind of paying it that way, right? So,
Yeah.
so like, is there a
You're correct,
wash?
they are paying it. It's not a wash per se, it's still extra costs, so they're going to pay more, that we're adding more onto the total amount to be levied. But you
But
are
then
correct,
you're
it's
paying more
levied on everybody.
That's right.
Yeah.
Councillor Thompson wants to comment.
My
too, so-
preference is that we don't, so
Okay.
I'll let others speak.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Thompson.
What did he say?
His preference is that we keep doing it the way that we've always done it.
This Charlie Berlin was here a couple of meetings ago and brought the question about the garbage pickup for the hotels. They're paying and have been paying all along, and then they changed and cut it off, and everything remained the same. Who's answering that question? Is that what I hear?
Are we talking about the commercial? Because he wasn't talking
Yes.
about commercial in that question.
I'm talking about the hotels. Were
Yeah, Councillor Pietrangelo, did you want to?
Well, just on that point, I mean, I think what Mr. Berlin was bringing up was the fact that commercial properties were part of the overall assessment. This report just deals with the enhanced services that the city is asking the region to provide. So it's a somewhat different issue in the sense that the issue Mr. Berlin brought up is, why are you including us in the garbage assessment? But the enhanced services really don't have to do with that. That's more a decision of council. So it would be in a separate report, I guess, would be your answer.
Well, when are we going to have a report?
Well, we can ask
a couple of months ago.
staff, do we have
And,
any idea when we might get a report on that, on the commercial piece? Yeah, Tiffany?
So I did actually reach out to the region just last week with a couple of questions, thinking that this might come back around. I don't think I recall that a report was going to be coming back on it immediately, but I did ask them if they were able to provide a list of all the properties that don't receive service, because right now we don't have that information at the city. So in order for council to make an educated decision on this, I think it would be important to know which properties don't receive the service that would be, say, exempt from the levy, to know what the impact will be on the remaining groups that are in the levy. So until we get that information, or once we get that information, I should say, we'd be able to formulate a report that has a bit more information if council wanted to make a different decision on the billing. But Councillor Pietrangelo is correct, and that would be separate from deciding on the enhanced services. That's deciding on how it's being billed.
So it's in the works, waiting for more information?
It is, yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Do you have a date or?
I guess she stands hard to say because she's waiting for the region to get the information, so she's got the request in, so she's kind of at their mercy at this point. So is there any other comments or questions or discussions around this report? Because if not, you see what direction Councillor Pietrangelo looks to be leaning in, and unless someone's got some other comments. Other than that, option 5, did you have any other feedback on the report, Councillor?
Is 6 another service that we're actually deleting tonight? What are the deleted services that we're looking at tonight? Because I think my preference would just be to keep what we have, Your Worship. And again, my rationale behind that would be that, I mean, if you look in the report, it says that you're deleting 211 bins. So now you're going to force 211 properties to then go get private garbage coverage. Or perhaps there's 2 at one property, maybe. But regardless, by keeping them in, you're just adding more assessment to the overall amount that you divvy up. So I'm not sure where the scales land, but I would prefer to keep the service the same way that it is right now.
So is that a motion?
It is, Your Worship. And as a friendly amendment, I guess, then to staff's motion, I'd also like to add as a third recommendation that should anything change in regards to the regional contract in the city of Niagara Falls not being under regional services, that we not be obligated to keep our contract with these enhanced services. Thank you.
Okay. Is that clear, the motion by staff? Like Councillor Pietrangelo threw in that caveat for the third recommendation. So he's saying the recommendation moving forward, continuing on the service as it is now. Is that right, Councillor, with the updated pricing schedule? And also with the caveat that we not be obliged to the region should we go down a different path on our own collection. Okay, we had a seconder by Councillor Dabrowski. Do we have any discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved unanimously. All right, thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Nicol. Okay, we're going on to our planning portion of the meeting. Oh, yeah, and just before we do, I'm sorry, the clerk informs me that, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do ratification of the in-camera meeting that we had earlier tonight because it ties in with this past report. Mr. Clerk?
So ratification from in-camera meeting held earlier this afternoon that council formally requests that the Regional Municipality of Niagara allow the city to opt out of waste management services being offered by the region, allowing the city the opportunity to directly provide waste management services to the city of Niagara Falls.
Okay, moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Campbell. Any discussion to the resolution, the motion? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you for that. So now we're going to move on to the planning portion of the meeting. Okay, now call on our clerk, Mr. Madsen, to introduce the next item on the agenda.
A public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed plan of vacant land condominium located at the east side of Willoughby Drive, south of Winebrenner Road, Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on Friday, December 20th, 2019, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of council's decision shall leave their name on the sign-in sheets outside council chamber. It should also be noted that the public are no longer able to appeal a plan of vacant land condominium as per Bill 108.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. I now ask Mr. Hurlovich, our Director of Planning, to explain the purpose of the application.
Thank you, Your Worship. This property is actually the third phase of a plan of condominium, or a plan of condominium that was rezoned by City Council a few years ago. The property is about 8.7 hectares on Weinbrenner Road. It's, as I said, it's phase 3. You can see to the right side of the screen to the west is phase 1 of this Legends condominium, and phase 2. To the north are apartment buildings, and to the east is the Legends golf course. Oops, went the wrong way. Excuse me, as I said, the property is 8.7 hectares in total size. The intent is to develop only a portion of that area with 22 townhouse dwellings. There is 7.5 hectares of provincially significant wetland on that property, and those are protected. They're designated and zoned environmental protection. The application or the zoning on the property is residential 4, group multiple dwellings with special provisions for the buildings and setbacks and so on. Kind of an overview. So the 22 townhouse units are on the northeast corner of the total area, so encompassing about 3 acres of land. There's a small stormwater management pond to the west, and then the largest part of the property is provincially significant wetland. That area is not to be touched. So a close-up of this then, we can then see the 22 townhouse units. So Weinbrenner Road maybe it's better if I use the cursor. Weinbrenner Road terminates just at the eastern or western edge of the property. There's a road then that comes in, Street A, that would service all of these units, comes down and terminates in a T towards the south end, and there are 22 townhouse units proposed. It's a vacant land plan of condominium. And so we looked at the official plan. The density of the property is within the prescribed density for this particular area. The property, as I mentioned, is already zoned R4. We did receive some minor variances for rear yard decks along the east property line facing onto Legends, and 2 units on the south east. I'll just back up a slide. So there were some variances granted in this area for a back deck, and the units in this block of townhouses were also granted a variance for the decks to project into the required amenity space. So those were granted. So the proposal does comply with the zoning. The application, therefore, for plan of condominium does meet our official plan. It will help with our 3-year supply of housing. The conditions, the interests of the region and the city are expressed in the conditions of approval attached to this report. Those are the highlights of this report. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurlovich. Any questions for Director of Planning? Okay, seeing none, Council will now hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the plan of vacant land condominium. Is there anyone here other than the applicant who wishes to address Council on this? All right. Council will now hear from the applicant or his or her representative.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Craig Rowe. I'm a senior planner with Upper Canada Consultants. We're the consulting agent for Mr. Fred Costabile, who's the applicant. With me this evening is also Mr. Rocco Vaca from Sullivan Mahoney. He's the solicitor for the applicant. As usual, the director's done a very succinct job of presenting the application. I just wanted to provide just one more contextual slide to kind of walk you through where we're at right now. As indicated, we're on phase 3 of Legends. You've probably seen down in Chippewa, phase 1 is under construction. Phase 2 is moving forward towards pre-construction media, and hopefully will be underway in the spring. With phase 3, we did obtain the minor variances from Committee of Adjustment last Thursday night, and those were to ensure that we could also have covered decks, which is consistent with the built form that's been throughout this development. Within this, what we're also doing is we're doing a reconstruction of Weinbrenner Edgeworth Road and an extension of servicing down under that road. So we've been working closely with city staff on there, and we have environmental compliance approvals in place to help urbanize that road and get a proper thoroughfare through there. What we're dealing with in this scenario is that we do have quite a bit of environmental stewardship that's being taken on by the condominium corporation in the end. So as this is right now, we have the 22 condominium units that are in here with their internal private road and parking. On the back side of this is a maintenance trail with a berm, which is consistent with the back side of Legends 1 and 2, and that's to ensure that folks can get in there, maintain the wetland, and take care of anything they may have to. The wetland is going to remain in the ownership of the condominium corporation. It's designated and zoned as environmental protection area, and consistent with the findings of the environmental impact study, we're maintaining a 10-meter setback of the development edge, the boundary of development that the site plan is to that wetland feature. So we've read through the planning report. We agree with the findings in it. Mr. Vaca is now just going to speak briefly, just a little bit of discussion about a condition of approval that's been added. And this is just a sample of Legends 1 if you haven't been out to the site.
Evening, Your Worship, members of council. I sent an email to all of you a few hours ago. I'm not sure if you saw it. I have hard copies if you didn't. So basically, my involvement in this file began a few hours ago when we noticed the condition that the fire department has requested. Ironically, 6 years ago to the day, I was before you for the same property owner, Mr. Costabile, dealing with the exact same issue. Whether the city can legally impose a requirement that homes must have fire sprinkler systems on single access roads or cul-de-sacs, such as the one before you. That development was a German Village subdivision. The argument 6 years ago was that there was no provision in the building code, fire code, any provincial regulations, any regional bylaws or regulations, any city bylaws or policies approved by city council that required homes to have fire sprinklers. City council 6 years ago, with many of you around this table, unanimously agreed with me and didn't require fire sprinklers. And you took a step further. You actually directed your fire department not to request these conditions unless they're required by law or by approved city policy. I suggested at that time that if the fire department strongly believed it should be the policy of this city, that it should ask city council to initiate a public process and get input from all stakeholders, and then decide whether or not it should approve a policy requiring fire sprinklers. Once again, that was 6 years ago to this day. What has been done the past 6 years by the fire department on this issue? Absolutely nothing. The fire department continues to request sprinklers in these circumstances, and quite frankly, generally, if there's no opposition from a developer, the condition is sometimes imposed. In cases where the developer points out to council that it has no legal right whatsoever to impose the condition, city council does not impose it, such as German Village. Well, I'm here to tell you that you had no right to impose this condition 6 years ago, and you still have no legal right to do so. Your decision as a democratic elected body has to be based on the rule of law. The rule of law here is that there is no law or policy applicable in this city requiring fire sprinklers in these circumstances. Quite frankly, that should be the end of the discussion. Making decisions against your applicable rules is a very slippery slope. It goes against the principles of equality and predictability, which is important to everyone who appears before you, not just land developers. Therefore, I'm requesting that you delete condition number 26, you apply the rule of law, and otherwise approve the application. happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vaca. Yes, Councillor Strange.
Thank you, Mr. Vaca. Can we find out maybe from legal if it is law, whether they're supposed to, or from Alex Hurlovich, whether it is law to have these sprinklers in with the recommendation or not?
Mr. Hurlovich?
Yeah, to you, Your Worship.
With the fire department?
Yeah, I don't think anything has changed in the Ontario Building Code or Fire Code. I know that the fire department has a policy. We have imposed it in other developments where the road exceeds 90 meters. And it may be, as Mr. Vaca says, that it's because the developer or builder has not opposed that. But we do impose or ask for that condition because we're thinking of the safety of the residents over the long term. If that roadway was to be blocked and it's impossible to get fire services in there, there would be a degree of protection. I understand that houses that have sprinkler systems do enjoy a reduced home insurance premium, and so I do not think that this is an onerous condition. It's a condition that actually benefits the long-term residents who will be in that house and not necessarily the developer.
But legally, I think that's what Councillor Strange is saying. So legally, and I don't know, Ms. Jacques, if you could answer it, but legally, are we obliged to do this? Right.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I just don't. If it's a policy, I don't want to opine on that because I just don't know the answer.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions or comments for Mr. Vaca? Councillor Thompson.
Well, I remember going through this before, and a couple of times it's come up where they were recommending fire extinguishers, and reading the correspondence that you sent through, the one I liked the best, carbon dioxide and smoke alarm save lives. Sprinklers save property. So I like that very much. And this looks like a reasonable development. So I would make the motion.
We're not there yet. Yep.
No, I'm just talking about section 26. Delete that with the final motion.
Yep, we'll get to that point for sure. So is there any other questions or comments from Mr. Vaca? Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, the public meeting with respect to the proposed plan of vacant land condominium is now concluded. Councillor Thompson, you're going to make the motion.
I would make the motion for approval with the deletion of section 26.
Okay, with the, okay, that's moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Strange, that we approve the recommendation with the deletion of condition 26. Is there any discussion to that? We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Okay, I'd ask our city clerk to introduce the next item on the agenda.
Public meeting is now being convened to consider a draft plan of subdivision and to consider proposed amendments to the city's official plan and zoning bylaw to permit various proposed dwellings, schools, and parkland on a 41.5 acre parcel of land on the southwest corner of McLeod Road and Kaler Road. Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on Friday, December 20th, 2019, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passing of the draft plan of subdivision and the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, or would like to preserve their opportunity to appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal with regards to the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments only, shall leave their name on the sign-in sheets located outside the council chamber.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mattson, now ask our Director of Planning, Mr. Hurlovich, to explain the purpose and reason for the proposed draft plan, official plan, and zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, it does involve 3 specific applications for the development of this property. As the clerk said, it's 41.5 acres of land at the west corner of McLeod Road and Kaler Road. To the northeast is Pinewood Plaza. There's a dental office immediately to the northeast of the property. To the east is the NEPCI property, as well as a transit service property. There are proposed apartment buildings. To the south are single detached dwellings, and to the west is Warren Creek and the trail that runs along the west side of this property. The applicant is proposing to divide the property into 104 lots for detached dwellings, 8 lots for 16 semi-detached dwellings, and then 26 blocks, which would provide 148 on-street townhouse dwelling units. There's 1 block for a future school site that would be divided into 2, and there are blocks for a city park, road widenings, and various reserves. The official plan amendment, they're seeking to amend the Garner South secondary plan. So on the left-hand side of the screen is the designations in the official plan as they currently exist. So there's a golden color, anyway, the little red square at the top right is the dental office. I mentioned that earlier. So that's outside of the plan of subdivision. The golden color is high-density residential. This is the area where the 2 school boards would like to put their future schools. So there's seeking to change that from high-density residential to medium-density residential, which will permit the schools. They're seeking to change the low-density residential area by moving it further to the west. So that's the white area on the screen. And then the medium density, which is yellow, they would be moving as well to kind of the central part. The open space block is being reduced in size to represent the 5% parkland dedication that the city can legally request through this plan of subdivision process. So on the right-hand side, you can see the large blue block, which would be the institutional school property for both the Catholic and public school boards. The golden area in the middle is the medium density. Those would be the street townhouses. And then the yellow area is the single detached residential dwellings. The zoning asked for on this property then is that they would apply the I institutional zone to the blue block, which is the school block, and the balance of the residential property would be zoned R3. The R3 permits single detached, semi-detached, and on-street townhouses. There are some special provisions they're asking for, and I'll get to that a little bit later in this presentation. And the park block would be zoned open space. The plan of subdivision, I realize it's a little difficult to read. I'll try and point out. So immediately north of this development is Parkside Drive. The applicant is proposing a brand new street that would be an extension of Parkside. It curves through here and it would provide access to Butternut. There is a road allowance that is currently unopened but held by the city, which would allow Butternut to extend northward, which would allow a connection through here because it does dogleg. We feel that that actually will keep a lot of the drive-through traffic reduced to a minimum. The other streets then are local streets that feed off of that particular development. So again, you can see the lots for the single detached and semi-detached dwellings, and then the on-street townhouses, the school block, and lastly the park block. We did hold an open house last fall. There were several residents that came out. They did express concerns about McLeod Road, the condition of the road, the traffic safety and infiltration of traffic into the neighborhood. As I pointed out, that street is designed to dogleg to reduce the amount of traffic that would filter through there. As well, they were concerned about the size of the park. At that meeting, city staff noted that McLeod Road road allowance is to be widened. It will require an environmental assessment. At this point, that has not been put in the current budget, but it is would be identifying any need for traffic lights if that was a requirement. Staff also noted that the park size has been reduced in size from 2 hectares to 1 hectare to represent the, 2 acres to 1 acre to represent the 5% that the city can ask for legally under the Planning Act. The application, we reviewed these. They are in the Greenfield area. They're required to meet a density of 53 people and jobs per hectare. The provincial, that's the regional target. The minimum density is 50 people and jobs per hectare. A noise study was submitted by the applicant and it does confirm that the proposed subdivision will not be adversely affected by the industrial uses to the east. I mentioned Niagara Peninsula Energy and the bus service building. This development will provide for a range of housing types and educational facilities that will serve the residents in the Empire Homes development or Warren Woods. The requested changes in the designation can be supported. The proposal is that the school site be relocated to the northeast section of this plan. The school boards have not yet determined their land needs, so that would be occur at a later date, but they are reserved for those school boards should provincial funding come through. A 2-hectare park was illustrated in the secondary plan. As I said, that was larger than what we can ask for. It had been designed that large because we had intended to be one central park. Instead, 2 additional parks were provided. One in the southern development that's already occurred and another on the east side of Kaler Road. So the parkland has been more equitably distributed. The residential low, medium densities reflect the proposal that they're intending. The subdivision does meet the minimum requirements for density in the secondary plan. The minimum number of there's a minimum number of reverse lot frontages on McLeod Road. There are some similar conditions, and so therefore we believe that this can be tolerated on the north side of the property on the south side of McLeod Road. I mentioned that there are a number of site-specific zone changes. So the zoning would be changed from development holding to a site-specific R3 provision. So they are looking to reduce the size of lot area per dwelling unit for detached dwellings and semi-detached dwellings. The lot area that they're requesting is actually the same as what we have been applying to other portions of the Warren Woods subdivision. Similarly, they're looking to reduce the lot frontage for a detached dwelling from 12 meters for an interior lot to 9.5 meters, and from 15 meters for a corner lot to 12.5 meters. Similarly, the semi-detached lot would be reduced from 18 meters to 15 meters, and on-street townhouses would be reduced from 6.5 meter frontage to 6 meters. These are all the standards that we've been applying within the other portions of the Warren Woods plan of subdivision. A minimum front yard setback of 6 meters is required in the standard R3 zone. They are asking for 4.5 meters to the dwelling and 6 meters to the garage space. This we have been doing on a regular basis, not only in Warren Woods, but elsewhere in some of the new subdivisions. The rear yard is they're asking for 7.5 meters, or is required 7.5 meters. They're asking for 6. We're not supporting that. They're asking the minimum interior side yard is 1.2 meters. And they're asking for 1 meter on one side and 0.6 meters on the other side. Minimum interior side yard for a townhouse is 3 meters. They're asking that be reduced to 1.2. And the minimum exterior side yard of 4.5 meters is the standard. They're looking for 2.4 for the dwelling and 6 meters to to the garage, the 6 meter being about 18 feet, which would allow a garage or a car to be able to park in front of the garage. As well, they're looking for some changes in the lot coverage. They've asked for a reduction from 45% to 0. We're not supporting that. I'll come to that in a minute. They're asking for a minimum landscape area. They're proposing none instead of the 30%. They're seeking a height increase from 10 meters to 12.5 meters. I'll speak to that in a minute as well. They're also looking at the floor area for second dwelling units to be allowed. So our bylaw permits 40% of the primary dwelling unit to be used to calculate floor space for a second unit. They're asking that the 40% of the dwelling also include the attached garage. We're not supporting that, but we have an alternative. They're looking for parking to be provided. We require one parking space for each dwelling unit, so one for the detached dwelling, one for the second unit in the same building. They're looking for 2 spaces, but that they be provided in tandem, so one behind the other. We're not supporting that. The rear yard along Taylor Road, I'm sure that one is. The minimum projection of eaves and canopies and gutters into the side yard of 0.45 meters. They're asking for 1 meter. And then the minimum width of a driveway of 60% of the lot frontage up to a maximum of 9 meters. And they're asking that 65% of the lot frontage be allowed for a driveway. So as I was saying, we're supporting most of those recommendations because they're already found in the Warren Woods development. However, the reduction of the rear yard to 6 meters would be noticeably smaller than the adjacent yards. Therefore, we are recommending, rather than the standard 7.5 meters, a rear yard depth of 7 meters. Rather than eliminating the landscaped open space, we believe that some green space on the property would be beneficial to the whole area. So we're suggesting that 25% of the lot area would be required for landscaped open space. We are in support of changing the size of this second dwelling unit, maintaining the 40%, but rather than just including the main floor and second floor, that they also be allowed to use the basement floor or basement level. We normally wouldn't allow that. We don't count that as part of the gross floor area, but in this case, that would allow them to have a slightly larger, so you can appreciate the whole of the basement could be used for a second dwelling unit, allowing the family to live on the first and second floor. They're asking for the parking to be provided in tandem. We believe it's important that each resident be able to exit the driveway without requiring their upstairs or downstairs neighbor to move their car so they can get out of the driveway. The open space, the zone, there was a request because of the reduced frontage for the trail, because it's city property, that's not required. And the school block would be zoned institutional. Will provide the appropriate regulations for the schools should they receive funding. In terms of the subdivision design, we've already talked about the mix of housing, already talked about the future school sites. Should those not be developed for schools, they could then be developed for medium density residential development. They would require a zone change to do that, but the official plan would support the zone change if the schools don't materialize. The park block is to be dedicated to the city. It will serve the residents of the subdivision to the south as well as this particular subdivision. Transportation Services has suggested that 2 lots be reserved to provide future access for the property to the west. Some of you might recognize this land as the area that we call the Badger Farm. The Badger Farm is divided into 2 by Warren Creek. So the western half of the Badger Farm has some limited frontage because of provincially significant wetlands and transportation feels that it may be necessary to bring a second access road through this development. So we are asking that 2 lots be conveyed to the city for a future road if it's not needed for a future road, because the west half can develop independently, then those lots would be conveyed back to the developer. McLeod Road is to be improved. I mentioned the transportation study will be required, and that's at a date not yet established, and that there would be, SciTech has asked for warning clauses to be inserted in this plan of subdivision because of their operations to the southwest. The SciTech had also asked that the buildings be limited to 2 stories for detached and semi-detached dwellings and 2.5 stories maximum for the townhouses. We see no problem with that. That's been done elsewhere in Warren Woods, but they have asked that the building heights be restricted to 10 meters. We feel that that's not necessary, that the 12.5 meters requested by the developer can and should be supported. So our findings are that this development does comply with the provincial and regional policies. It will achieve the density targets for greenfield areas. The requested changes to the secondary plan are acceptable, again, because of the density targets. The recommended zoning regulations for the lots and blocks will allow for a compact built form. Open space and institutional zones will provide appropriate regulations for recreational and school uses. Therefore, staff is recommending the amendment to the official plan as detailed in this report. The rezoning of the property, subject to the details, so not everything the developer has asked for, but almost everything. That the subdivision design be approved subject to conditions. That condition does include the future conveyance of 2 lots for a possible road, and that the mayor be authorized to sign the draft plan as approved after 20 days, should there be no appeals, and the draft approval be given for a period of 3 years, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the subdivision agreement once that has been prepared and all matters are addressed as satisfaction of the city. Those are the highlights of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Hurlovich. Do we have any questions of council?
That was 3 applications.
That was. Do we have any questions for Mr. Hurlovich? Okay, seeing none. Members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral or written submission at this public meeting will result in the local planning appeal tribunal dismissing any referral that it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheet will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per section 3419 of the Planning Act. Council will now hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to address council. Is there anyone here who wishes to address council on this matter other than the applicant? Okay, seeing none, council will now hear from the applicant or his or her representative. State your name, please.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. My name is William Hycoop. I'm a planner with Upper Canada Consultants. I'm representing Cobas Developments, a joint venture between Mountain View and Pinewood Homes, and they are the owners of the lands for the proposed development being called Splendor Subdivision. As it has been noted, they consist of an official plan amendment to the Gardner South Secondary Plan, a zoning amendment, and draft plan of subdivision. Here you can see the subject lands highlighted in yellow. As previously noted, they're comprised of 41.5 acres. The site is currently vacant. Mr. Hurlovich did a good job in explaining the context, and I think we're all aware of where this site is. It doesn't really show up that great here. I tried to put some colors in there just to show the differences of where things are. But simply, there's 104 single detached family dwellings, 16 semi-detached dwellings, 148 street townhouse dwellings, combining to 268 dwelling units in total. The site has been designed to have two main connections to the existing street network, Parkside Road to the north and the Butternut Boulevard to the south to the Warrenwood subdivision. The two future school sites are located in the northeast and will split frontage between McLeod and Kaler. At this time, there has not been a serious commitment from either of the school boards, as funding has not been allocated. However, the Public School Board has made applications to the Ministry of Education, and we're waiting to hear back on them about that. The park is proposed in the southwest corner of the property, and this will link into the Warren Creek Trail that runs along the western edge. Just getting to the official plan amendment, generally speaking, the mix of densities are consistent with the secondary plan requirements. However, the organization has been slightly reconfigured in we feel a very appropriate manner. The existing open space park block has been identified, and as Mr. Herlovich mentioned, that 5% is being dedicated. The land set aside for the future school sites are designated as medium density, but I want to stress that the institutional uses are permitted under that designation. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment with the site-specific provisions will implement the residential land uses on the property and bring in an R3 zone for the residential component, open space zone for the park, and institutional zoning for the school blocks. At this time, I feel it is important to note that we agree with staff's revised zoning provisions, and there's something that we can work with. Certainly, there's been some dialogue with staff about that, and we feel we can move forward with the changes suggested in the recommendation report. So just to keep you aware of where we are right now, we have completed some traffic with Paradigm Transportation Solutions. Archaeological has been completed, and the stage 4 assessment is currently at the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport for clearance. Environmental site assessments have been completed by Wood PLC, and functional servicing and stormwater management reports have been submitted by Upper Canada Consultants. In order to move forward with things, a lot of the design work was previously contemplated through the Warrenwood subdivision and the Kaler Road reconstruction that was completed within the last year or so. So as I mentioned, we agree with those proposed zoning changes. However, we do have reviewed the conditions and would like to suggest some changes, specifically to condition 30. We would like to add that SciTech Canada shall not unreasonably withhold their clearance of this provision, subject to the discretion of the city solicitor. We feel that as they're a private landowner and not a government agency, we need to have respect for their operations, but also that there's a level of reasonableness in their requests. Secondly, we're looking at getting a revised wording to condition 19, specifically that the developer maintain ownership of a lot designated for a potential road connection to the west, but be subject to a 5-year reserve provision by the city. If the city does not utilize the lot for a road purpose within 5 years, the developer would be permitted to apply for a residential building permit on this lot, and we can certainly address this through the subdivision agreement. We did a brief review of the neighboring site, the remainder of the Badger farmlands to the west of the Warren Creek Trail. When we noted the site has an approximately 160 meters of frontage along McLeod Road, based on a typical subdivision design, we feel that this is ample space to provide 2 street connections with typical lots on either side to McLeod Road. We feel that this connection to the east over the Warren Creek and Warren Trail is not ideal for a couple of reasons, but predominantly the development of the lands to the west would be limited to an area of the property within 300 meters of McLeod Road. This distance is short to drive and walk, and McLeod Road is the primary transportation route to the area. The Splendor subdivision does not include an easterly road connection all the way to Kaler due to the provision of these school sites as requested by the Catholic and public school boards. Therefore, there would be no incentive for the residents of Splendor subdivision or the property to the west to make vehicle trips in a westerly direction or in an easterly direction. So we feel that and ask council to consider these and revise those conditions of approval and due to these reasons. So just to finalize some of my points, I just wanted to show you some examples of the proposed building designs, which includes both street townhouses and single detached dwellings, providing a mix of housing within the development and neighborhood. The objective is to create lot sizes and dwellings that are similar and compatible with the existing surrounding neighborhood and will reflect design typologies of similar types of dwellings. And this will really include a range of traditional and modern unit designs. With that being said, that concludes my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. First off, Mr. Hurlovich, did you want to comment on the suggestions of conditions 30 and 19?
I wonder, William, can you back up to the slide where you had those revised conditions?
Yes.
Yeah. So, excuse me, I have seen this proposed change to condition 30 that SciTech not unreasonably withhold their clearance, and I think that is a request that we should and can support. I think for the reasons that the speaker has outlined, and that is that it is a private company, that there really isn't any jurisdiction. As you know, SciTech has a 200-meter arc where they regulate land use. This is well beyond that. Did I say 200 meter? I meant 2-kilometer arc. So it's well beyond that 2-kilometer arc. So really, I think that the developer being reasonable and saying yes, they're willing to limit the height of those buildings, certainly moved to accommodate SciTech's principal concerns. With respect to condition 19, the city was suggesting that the city take ownership of those lots and then return it if it wasn't needed. The proposal here is that the developer would retain it with an agreement between the city. I'm okay with that requirement. I'm just not sure whether 5 years is sufficient. I would say 5 years with a option for a 5-year period of renewal. And let's take a look in 5 years. Can we move to the slide that you had with the 3 red arrows? So the concern is from our traffic and parking. While Mr. Haiku has shown that it might be possible, St. Michael's School is directly across the street, and this is a really busy area with respect to cars coming and going, bus turning movements. They have 2 driveways, and so where those 2 red arrows are fronting onto McLeod Road, it might not be possible, given traffic patterns, to get both streets in, which is why we're asking for the connection to the Splendor subdivision, which is the red arrow in the middle of the slide. It's not necessarily because we think people would want to cut through here to get out to Kaler Road. It's for the same reason that we just dealt with on the last application, is to provide a second means of ingress and egress from this development or property to the west, so that in the future we're not dealing with an ask by fire department for sprinklers, because we would have an opportunity to make a second connection by showing that connection on the plan now. anybody buying lots along that western side of the Splendor subdivision would be aware that there could potentially be a future road there. So anybody that doesn't want to become a future corner lot is going to avoid taking one of those. We don't want to make it look like, it's just lots next to lots, when in actual fact it could be a road. So I don't have a problem with the second condition, subject to an additional 5-year renewal period.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions of council for Mr. Haiku? Oh, I think we're good. Oh, you have a question, Councilor? Yeah, Councillor Thompson has a question.
Yeah. Very difficult to follow through all of those recommendations. What are you saying about the planner's comments with respect to your development? If you're not in favor of SciTech putting conditions on you, I would move that in a heartbeat, because I don't see how that factory out there can have 2 kilometers of control over important developments happening in this city. So what are you looking for from Mr. Hurlovich to get this thing moving along?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Thompson, I think as Alex has previously commented, they were concerned about the height of the buildings. He disagreed. So he disagreed with them and is going to support the 12.5 meter height, if that's my understanding. So we're okay with that. And our concern is really that they're reviewing that and not providing their clearance. So if it's something that we are in agreement with staff on, then we would be able to move forward, given that we're almost 3 kilometers away from them, so almost 1 kilometer outside of that arc.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So I guess to add to that, I think
all of the other conditions and suggestions that he made, you're accept?
Yeah, the additional 5-year renewal period, I think that would be acceptable to us. It would be something I think that we'd like to look at again in 5 years to see if there's any movement, if there's any immediate plans for that neighboring property, and then a total of 10 years. That's something we're okay with.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, well then.
To the end of the meeting.
Yep. Any other questions or comments of council? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the public meeting with respect to the proposed draft plan of subdivision official plan and zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I move the motion, and particularly the finger to SciTech.
Okay, so Councillor Thompson moves the recommendation with the addition of the amendments to condition 30 to SciTech as suggested by Mr. Haiku, and condition 19 with the addition Councillor Hurlovich made of an additional 5 years to renewal. Okay, so everyone understands that's seconded by Councillor Dabrowski.
Without that last comment.
What was that? Without the last comment. Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you for that. If there's any discussion, if there's no discussion to the motion, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now we move on to our report section of the agenda, 8.1. This is a matter arising from the Municipal Heritage Committee. And I know we've got someone in the audience who'd like to address council on this matter. Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I don't know whether Al Haywood wants to speak on this. We had discussions earlier, and they would like to have this application deferred, and I would be happy to make that motion. But did you want to speak on this at all?
Yeah, if you'd like to address council, because once we defer, we can't talk about it anymore. So if you'd like to address council.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. I did try and get in touch with the clerk at about 4 o'clock when I found out Leah Wallace couldn't attend tonight, and she's key to our presentation. So I would request a deferral.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Campbell, that this matter be deferred. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. All right, thank you very much. Which one? Oh, yeah. Is anybody here for that? I don't think there is. We'll get there. Okay, item 8.2, 2017 Closed Capital Project Variance Report. There's a recommendation that council receive the report for information and approve the recommendation transfers to reserves. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Strange. If there's no discussion, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? That's approved. Thank you. Item 8.3, multi-year governance agreement for the joint transit procurement facilitated by Metrolinx. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. If there's no discussion of that, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you for that. Okay, item 8.4, Rainbow Crosswalk request. Now, this one, I understand that we've, first of all, I understand that we've got a request to do a, recite a poem, but I also understand that City Council has, or City Hall has recently received more information on further way of potentially painting the intersection. Mr. Dren, did you want to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I understand, and again, this was forwarded from the Mayor's office with regards to an individual who may have been interested in painting the crosswalk versus doing this treatment. And staff attempted to contact the individual several times and has not responded to it. So hence that wasn't included in the report.
Okay, unfortunately, Councillor Carrio is one that connected us, and he's away today, so I'm not really sure. Do we have any feedback from council? Anyone been in touch with Councillor Carrio on this?
I can't be in touch with him, just not right now.
Well, okay, why don't we, in the meantime, Fallon Shaw would like to recite a poem, I believe, and then we'll have to discuss what we're doing in light of the missing information from Councillor Carrio.
Councillors, Your Worship, thank you so much to be here again. Now with this new information, I'm not sure what that is going to mean. I do want to read a poem that I wrote specifically when I was proposing this idea. 50 years later, and it is still a fight. What is happening in my community just isn't right. If you've never felt the depression that's caused by oppression, I'm happy for you. But can you remember that this planet is full of other people too? We all have different stories about from where we came. That's what makes this world wonderful. None of us are the same. The rainbow is a symbol of unity, not just for the community, but for all. This crosswalk is a means to build a bridge. It was never meant to build a wall. And I would like to say that is directly to some of the citizens that believe that there is no point for a crosswalk to be put in this city. And I made the mistake of looking at the comments on the review. And I was very hurt emotionally, not just myself, but on the base of the entire community, of the things that people were saying and how it should just be painted. It doesn't matter what it is. Just paint it with some nail polish. Just any comments you could think of, they were just horrible. I would really like to ask you guys to vote on this tonight and not wait for someone to paint it so that you can show the city and the people that are in the city that this is going to be done. And the gay community has never asked for anything like this. I'm sure you know, Mayor, has this happened before?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So I really think we've got it down to $1,500 from $14,000. I think we brought it down to a really acceptable price for the city to show their, their unity and their support. I really hope this is not deferred to another meeting because of what Mr. Carrio wants to do.
No, it's a positive thing.
It's a positive
Yes.
thing? Good.
It's a very positive thing.
Yeah.
I just hope that we can
Could
get
go
it.
from that to free, so.
That is fine, but like I said, paint will have to be done. So you're looking at something that isn't free. So I'm asking from the bottom of my heart that we get this done tonight. And we do that. And I think that you're going to show the city that we're not just trying to do something for free, that the gay community deserves $1,500. of taxpayer money.
So first of all, that poem was very nice. Thank you for that. Second of all, any questions for Fallon of council at this point? Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Dabrowski.
Yeah, I've read a lot of the comments as well, and it was quite shocking and unfortunate. Thanks to staff and the BIAs for meeting together. I think we've come up with a cost-effective solution to make this Pride crosswalk a reality here in Niagara Falls. Thanks for your presentation. Thanks for all the hard work you put into it as well. I'd like to make a motion that we allocate $1,500 from the transportation budget. We match the BIA's $1,500. And if we could put a timeline on it, June 1st, 2020, I hope that's reasonable, before Pride Month.
Yeah.
Maybe we can...
For Pride, raising the Pride flag, I think it would be perfect.
Exactly. So, I'd like to make that motion. I think we've talked about this and gone around the table enough. I think we've got down from 14,000 to, I think it was 5,000, now to 3,000, now to 1,500, so I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay, thank you for that. So we've got a motion by Councillor Dabrowski, seconded by Councillor Lococo. And just before we open up, timeline, Mr. Nicol, I know you're doing some road reconstruction. How does that work with what you're doing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the road tenders are out right now, so I don't see that timeline being impossible to meet. I can report back if there are any challenges to meet it, but I foresee that being something we can accomplish.
Okay. All right, great. Any questions or comments of council? Okay, let's call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, motion by Councillor Pietrangelo to move the consent agenda, second by Councillor Dabrowski to move the consent agenda. Councillor Lococo, you'd like to lift something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pull RNC 2020-01 about the Public Art Advisory Task.
Okay, I'm sorry, that was RC?
RNC 2020-01, Rec and Culture.
Okey-doke. All right, any others that need to be lifted? Okay, so did I get a second for that? Oh, sorry, Ross. Yeah, who seconded it? Oh, Chris was, okay. So we'll call the vote on moving the remainder of the consent agenda. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you. And then Councillor Lococo, you'd like to address RNC 2021, so fire away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of communities enhance their resident and visitor experience through public art. I thought this was a great opportunity to hear from our Recreation and Culture Director, Kathy Moldenhauer, about what the Public Art Advisory Committee is. Could we call on Ms. Moldenhauer?
Absolutely. Ms. Moldenhauer.
Thank you. The Public Art Advisory Task Force was actually developed in 2013, and it was a recommendation in our revised public art policy. So the committee is set up to act as an advisory committee for staff, and then of course staff then completes the report and advises council of the recommendations. So what the Public Art Advisory Task Force, what they do is whenever we receive any type of a proposal related to public art, it could be a donation, it could be a gift, it does go to this committee for discussion. The committee looks at the piece of public art to determine if it is a good fit for the city and possible locations for it. The Public Art Advisory Task Force, they're also responsible to ensure that city staff, that we are maintaining our current public art inventory up to standards. And by standards, what we're referring to is proper museum collection policy standards. They also give advice if we are at the point with a piece in our collection that is in need of repair, or perhaps we're looking at assessing the piece of art. And this could be, for example, I think we had one painting that had not been taken care of properly. And the committee provided different methods of how this painting could be preserved, rather than, of course, eliminating it from the collection. So this year, as stated in the report, the one project that they are proud of is our city historian, who we recognized, of course, at our last council meeting. Sherman brought to the Public Art Advisory Task Force the idea of creating a storyboard plaque just to recognize the history of our railways here in the city. And they did create and they did install that plaque over at Niagara Falls train station. With this committee, there are limited funds for the city to acquire public art, but they do seriously consider all proposals that do come forward, and we're very happy to have them because they bring a certain expertise. We have people on the committee from Niagara Falls Art Gallery. Of course, we have our museum staff, we have library staff, we have our city historian, we have local artists, and we also have recreation and culture staff. And in the past, we did have our director of municipal works also sit on this public art advisory task force. So we're proud to have all of these individuals to advise the department on our public art policy.
Thank you for that. Councillor Lococo, is that covered for you? Would you like to make the motion then that we move that part of the consent agenda?
Yes, please, I'd like to move it.
Okay, thank you. So moved by Councillor Lococo, second by Councillor Dabrowski, that RNC 2020-01 be moved. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you. So we go on to communications. Item 10.1, flag raising request. The Girl Guides of Canada requesting a flag raising ceremony at Niagara Falls City Hall to recognize World Thinking Day on Saturday, February the 22nd. Motion by Councillor Strange, seconded by Councillor Campbell. All those in favor? That's approved. Thank you. Item 10.2, another flag raising. Bell Let's Talk requesting flag raising on Wednesday, January 29th in Niagara Falls, way to show our support for Bell Let's Talk mental health in our community. Moved by Councillor Strange, seconded by Councillor Campbell. Oh, you want to speak? Yes. Was it changed?
I have it as 3:30.
And you know what? I don't see a time here. Let me have a look here.
I think it is 3:30.
I thought it was changed from 3 to 3:30. I just want to make sure.
Yes, it is. It's in my calendar as 3:30 as well. Okay. So we have the motion moved by Councillor Strange, second by Councillor Campbell. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you. Item 10.3, Town of Deep River Resolution supporting Premier's developing small modular technology. The recommendation is that we receive. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Lococo, that we receive and file. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. 10.4, Niagara Regional various correspondence for the information of council. Moved by Councillor Thompson that we receive and file the reports. Seconded by Councillor Strange. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you. Item 10.5, the Boys and Girls Club of Niagara Champions for Children Gala taking place Thursday, February the 13th from 6 till 10 p.m. at Ruth's Chris. Recommendation for the information of council. Do we have a motion? Councillor Strange?
Yeah, so moved, and I know, I can't remember his name, but he reached out to us about possibly buying some tickets, so I know there's a couple people interested, so maybe we'll get back to them as far as how many people will be attending the dinner. Okay, so motion from Councillor Strange, second by Councillor Campbell, that we receive, and we have our staff petition council for the attendance of the Boys and Girls fundraiser on Thursday, February the 13th. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you. Resolution, we have one resolution, Mr. Clerk, draft plan of vacant land condominium modification to draft plan approval. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Strange. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Now we go to bylaws. Before we do, we have one bylaw that we are going to lift, and I believe, Mr. Clerk, is that 2012? That's correct. Okay, so we've got 1/2012 regarding, where are we here? Can you help me out here, Mr. Clerk? Uppers Lane, sorry. Regarding a bylaw transferring ownership of Uppers Lane. This has been discussed in camera, so we're looking for a motion
Motion for deferral.
Motion by Councillor Thompson that we defer the passing of that bylaw. Seconded by Councillor Dabrowski. Do we have any discussion to that? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved unanimously. Thank you for that. And now looking for, yes, Mr. Mattson?
Just before council does approve the rest of the bylaws, because of that deferral, just noting now that the the confirmatory bylaw would now be numbered 2020-12.
Okay. Councillor Pietrangelo, we're looking for a motion to introduce the bylaws.
The other one's already deferred.
Yes, it's been deferred.
Sure.
Okay, motion by Councillor Pietrangelo to give the bylaws a first, second, and third reading, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? That's approved. Now we're into new business. Does anyone have any new business?
I do.
Councillor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Some time ago, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Doug Jones approached me with some thoughts on stop signs in our community. Interestingly enough, he approached me on the basis of Niagara Falls becoming a leader with respect to moving forward to reduce our carbon footprint in Canada as a result by having staff look at the possibility of areas in town that stop signs could be removed and perhaps replaced with yield signs. My experience as I drive around ever since he's talked to me about it, 95% of the people don't stop anyways. I'm just simply saying that we could move forward from reducing our carbon footprint by having a good look at the number of stop signs. I do believe there are approximately 2,500 stop signs in our city.
Wow.
So I would like to make a motion that staff look at the possibility of reducing the number of stop signs and bring back a report that would look at the effects that it would also have on our carbon footprint.
Okay, that's great. So we've got a motion by Councillor Campbell, seconded by Councillor Dabrowski, that we ask staff come back with a report on stop sign changes and with the idea of reducing our carbon footprint. Okay, any discussion to the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that's approved.
Thank you.
Good job, thank you. Councillor Strange.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's not really our kind of mandate as a city council, but recently, and this girl's actually getting back from Germany today for Lyme disease treatment. And friends of all councils here, we went to a couple of her fundraisers last 2 years, Janet Ferrante. So I think she's actually getting back today. But I thought about it, and I thought, so you know what, I really would like to bring this up tonight, just because I've done a little bit of research on the computer and found out, you know, myself, I know 12 people infected with Lyme disease right in Niagara Falls. And it's unbelievable. Back in 2011, there was just over 200. And for me to know 12, and that's not even including Justin Bieber and Avril Lavigne, who are close friends of mine, so 14. But, you know, it's unreal because you look at the map and where it's most affected, and Southern Ontario is the most affected, basically, in all of Canada. In our parks, on our trails, and people have to go for treatment to Germany, to Mexico, to Florida, $60,000 out of pocket, and nothing back from our government. So it's pretty unreal. And I don't know if it's gonna get better. You know, Lyme disease, I don't know if you know, but it's caused by black-legged deer ticks. These ticks, which are in a majority a lot in Canada or in Southern Ontario, and the ticks become infected with Lyme disease bacteria by feeding on infected wild animals such as birds and rodents. Once infected, ticks can spread the bacteria to humans and our pets. So dogs can go out, Fireman's Park, whatever, come back, and you'd be advised to check because, they go in bed beside your daughter or your children, you can easily get infected. And it's so important for the awareness because once you get infected, sometimes you see a rash, but majority of the time you get this like bullet-sized rash. And very important, if you do, that you go to the emergency within 24 hours to get special medication and antibiotics. And if you wait any longer, and if you don't see any rash, sometimes you get bit by ticks in your ear canal, on your head, and you don't see them for years, and then you're in Janet Ferrante's position where you have to go outwards to Germany, $60,000 out of your pocket. For me personally, to know 12 people from Niagara Falls, and I'm sure we all know someone, everybody in this room knows someone probably infected with Lyme disease, and if you look at a person who has Lyme disease, they look great from the outside, but they're dying on the inside. And if you wait so long to get treated, it hits your organs, your heart, your brain, your liver, and your kidneys, and possibly die. In Niagara, because of climate change and our winters are much shorter, these ticks live much, much longer as our season becomes warmer. Like I said, they're in our parks, trails, long grass. And when you think about it, I don't know if there's any preventative measures, and there are. Long clothing, DEET, there's some repellents. And for these ticks, the most people at ages, children age 3 to 14 years of age are at the greatest risk as they're the most active outdoors.
If I may interrupt, it's just a passionate matter of mine. My mom is a homeopath, and you're familiar with my mom. You have her on Facebook. We could actually, there are preventative, this is a passionate, I just want to let you guys know that ticks don't like rose geranium oil. And also if you do get infected with a tick, if you take diatomaceous earth, it's known to get them while they're, you got to ingest the diatomaceous earth. So I suggest that just make it aware. Perhaps you guys could look into a public study.
Yep.
That's all I want to say on that matter.
Appreciate that. I did not know that was happening. She just arrived, so it was kind of like we're.
I didn't know who was going to bring that up.
Pardon me. But anyways, 3 to 14, and people that over 50, because outdoor leisure activities such as gardening, landscapers, hiking, and playing golf. Prince Kerry was here. Plays lots of golf. But I would just, and I feel horrible that our own health system in Canada is not doing much about it. The ticks are from here, from Southern Ontario, all over Canada, and they have to go outwards. $60,000 out of pocket for some of these people. And for poor Janet, she had to wait 2 years of funding, and that's not including your travel there either. So in 3 weeks of all this treatment going through her and staying still for 12 hours a day. So I really feel bad, and I think it's about awareness, and especially with our children. And I don't know whether they have that in schools or not, to know that when you get bit within that 24-hour span, to go and if the doctor says, oh, we don't think it's a tick, you ask for those antibiotics, because after that 24 hours, it's done. You have it. I'd like to make a motion, and I don't know if this is right, but I'd like to have staff or council meet with our 2 school board trustees, and I'll do it myself, find out what awareness, if any, is circulated to our elementary and high school students about early detection of Lyme and prevention. As well, I'd like for staff to reach out to our own provincial health minister, Christine Elliott, as well as our federal health minister, Patty Haji, and find out what remedies they're coming, if it's in the horizon of treating this horrible illness that's not going to stop, and people like Janet are still going to go through it. To me, to know 12 people myself is scary. And I would love for schools to get more awareness about this, because I would hate to be at some epidemic when they're out playing in Fireman's Park or wherever it may be, and where there's long grass, And because of our climate change, the ticks are living a lot longer. So I would just, those two motions.
Okay. So we got a motion by Councillor Strange, second by Councillor Campbell, that we engage our trustees with the two school boards and also the ministers of health provincially and federally on what their plans are for dealing with Lyme in the province and in the country.
And I know it's not our jurisdiction, but it's our problem, and it's in Niagara Falls.
No, I would agree with that. So we've got the motion, you heard the motion. If there's no further discussion to that motion, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that received unanimous support. Thank you for that. Do you have any other, Councillor Strange? No? Councillor Pietrangelo, do you have any new business? You generally have some new business.
Councillor Thompson, have it?
No, oh, not tonight. No.
All right, then I'll be brief, Your Worship.
Whoa, start the clock.
In spring of last year, this council enacted an interim control bylaw that dealt with looking at where we're going to allow cannabis to be grown and processed in the future, and perhaps changing the zoning that we have. Something similar to what other municipalities in the region have done as well, the ICBL. I believe that probably in maybe 4 months, that's going to be coming up. And that a report is going to be coming back to council. So I started getting emails from residents asking, if there's any early news. And what I thought might be a good idea is placing an icon on the city's website that just says, sign up here for any updates. So if we could have something flashy on the website where residents could, whatever you like. But if we had something on the website where residents could actually click on and then register their name, address, and an email, then anytime that we're getting an update or anytime there's going to be a public meeting that's going to talk about future zoning of cannabis facilities, they'll automatically receive an email. It could be one group one that's sent out.
Okay.
Is that possible?
I think, I see Dale Morton. Is that possible, Dale?
Sure, we can talk to IT.
Okay, then I'll make that a motion, Your Worship.
Okay, motion by Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Campbell, that we have a flashy icon
A
on.
big no smoking sign.
What's that?
A big no smoking sign.
Okay.
That's good.
Well, you guys can design what's flashy and acceptable on the website that people can register to get updates and information on the
interim control bylaw.
Interim control bylaw for cannabis. Okay. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, and that's approved. Thank you. You all done? Oh, you've got one?
Well, just one more, Your Worship. I'd hate to only give you one. So my last one is just in regards to a traffic study that was done more in the west end of town. It's basically north of McLeod Road and west of Kaler Road. So that entire subdivision. And the two main streets that go up that subdivision are Parkside and St. Michael Avenue. And the crux of the matter is that Parkside has speed humps and St. Michael Avenue doesn't. So there was a large traffic study that was done to determine whether or not residents wanted speed humps on St. Michael Avenue. The downfall of the traffic study is that there was not enough respondents to meet staff's criteria. So that means that staff don't even write a report to council. In my opinion, over 100 respondents in favor is quite a large number. It's just that the way that our criteria is set up, it didn't meet the threshold. We demand, I guess you could say, a 50% response rate. Otherwise, the survey doesn't become valid. I guess we can be glad that they don't have the same threshold for politician voting, because none of us would be here. So I know we're going to be looking at our criteria and how we evaluate it this year, but in the meantime, it's a large enough study and there's a large enough amount of people that have responded that I'd like staff to just give a brief report to council, because at some point I'd like to talk about mirroring what's on Parkside on St. Michael Avenue. So I'll make that a report, or sorry, I'll make that a motion that staff just report back on the findings of the traffic study that was done in that area to council, Your Worship.
Okay. All right. So we got a motion by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Dabrowski, that staff come back with a report on the traffic study for St. Michael's Avenue. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, that's approved. Sounds good. Any other new business? Councillor Thompson. Motion by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Dabrowski that we adjourn. We're done. All those in favor? Thank you.